All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. At least initially, it looks like we don't have a lot of people here today, but feel free to post any questions you may have in the chat or Q&A, and we can answer them. Otherwise, we'll give it a few minutes just to see if anyone else is planning on joining today. All right. I will iterate one more time. I don't remember if I said it the first time, but I am Jeremy Lewinowitz. I will be running today's Lunch and Learn. And again, if anyone has any questions, please post them and I'll be happy to explore some things. We have no pre-submitted questions for the day. Um, so we can, everything within decisions is at our disposal today for what we can do. So any questions we have, we can take a look. All right. Um, well, if we don't have um, anything, then I guess we can just do a little bit of exploring and checking out what we got in decisions. Um, don't really have anything necessarily planned or expected, but I was looking at a few other questions from other things outside of Lunch and Learn recently. So maybe I'll just show that off in case anyone in the call or anyone that is watching this back on YouTube or anything is curious. But I've been messing a lot with just some of the settings, and I think a lot of people maybe overlook this or don't even realize like how many options you have to change, the decisions, opening portal view. But there are actually a lot of settings in the portal settings section within system that you can actually take a look at. Like even if I just kind of collapse all of these, you can see there's a pretty vast amount of sections and areas that you can manipulate and change and kind of test. And so there's a lot of things that people may not even realize you can actually adjust and change with a lot of different kind of sections. And so I've been messing around with this just a little bit to kind of familiarize myself with it, as well as answer some questions that some people that I know have had, just like, oh, can I change what this side panel looks like? Or can I make it so that this side panel isn't always open? Things like that. And so it's just one of those things that doesn't really get advertised or talked a lot, but they are available under settings and portal settings because that's the main view. And this is in version 9 right now, what I have, but it's the same location in version 8 as well. And there's a lot of things. Quite a few of them are pretty self-explanatory, so I don't necessarily think I need to, like look at every single setting individually, but there's some pretty interesting things. You can change what the default, view pages and things are. If you want to have them be like different pages and things like that. You can adjust that. You can a number of different like globalization settings, and things like that. If anyone's ever been looking for, when a user logs in, what do we want to have open for them, right? In version 9, by default, it'll open up the projects folder if there's projects. But you can make it so that it just opens up straight to the workflow catalog automatically, or anything like that if you want to adjust, what a user has when they log in and things like that. And even just what kind of icons are available to actually view from things like that. You can hide the workflow catalog if you don't want that to even appear there. Maybe you don't plan on using it at all, so you don't need that to appear. You can actually hide it. Different things like that. There's various login restrictions, and there's also login page settings that has more login kind of settings and things to change if you want to as well. So there's quite a few areas related to that. There's mobile portal. So if you're using a mobile portal in any way, you can adjust what tabs are available there as well. How do you want notifications and things to do? Various page parts. Do you want to hide, titles or anything like that, or add borders? You can provide those things. Set password limitations and things like that as well. You can change those here. And then the big thing that I was really testing with, and that a lot of people I had heard had some questions and stuff about, is actually a lot about things like the design here. And specifically, there's actually some folder tree options that some people may have. With what if you don't want this folder tree to appear, or what if this folder tree takes up too much space and you're constantly closing it to make it more easily viewable, like maybe on a smaller screen, like a laptop, as opposed to a large monitor or something. You can actually change those settings here. So you can actually have it set. So for designer users or non-designer users, if you want them separate, you can have it collapse on start. So as soon as I open up this page, it'll actually be collapsed automatically. And then I can, click an icon to open it if I'd like. But maybe that you don't want someone to always have to have this open, on their page when they're looking at things, stuff like that. There's quite a few settings that really let you manipulate and change kind of what's here. And so I'm just going to show that particular thing off because it kind of leads into quite a few or places where there's quite a few changes you can make and in what you have available for users. So I set that and I saved it. And if I refresh, you'll see it actually adds this to my URL along the top. It says, and Chrome equals top bar folder tree collapsed. And so that folder tree is now collapsed automatically. So if I were to, open this up, then whatever dashboards that I want to have available, there's our purchase request project, right? Whatever purchase request project, as soon as I open this dashboard, it'll automatically be collapsed. And so especially if you're, sending this URL out to other users and things like that, maybe this is your landing page. And so you want users to have some of those things, adding these items here at the top in the URL really changes what you could view. And this isn't the only option you can have set there. So that's just an automatic setting you can have if you want that setting there. But you can also manipulate this to have, different things. If I had set it to Chrome equals off, it'll actually get rid of all of the different, decisions specific borders and, panels on the left and along the top and stuff like that, and only show the information that was right in the center. So if I have it Chrome equals off, now I can just see just the dashboard. And this is typically what, a user might use if they're trying to show something off for, like a landing page where, an end user doesn't need decisions, right? They don't need to have a decisions account. If you set up guest access and just, allow them to access the URL with Chrome equals off, they won't even see the decisions stuff there. So I know there's some people that will change that to be their own company's, logos and things like that. So it's not necessarily decisions up top if they want their own company to kind of display their information here. They don't have to necessarily have that up there. But if they don't even want that to appear at all, they don't care about these options, they don't need, the login stuff up the top, right? Then Chrome equals off will only display this information down here for users. And then, the setting that I just changed, you'll see, even though I didn't necessarily retype or add it here, it's on by default. So if I try to access this URL with all that stuff, it will automatically collapse this folder tree for me. So then I don't necessarily always have to go back and forth between it. So if you don't have someone utilizing this, or maybe you, like I mentioned, you have someone using smaller screens, this takes up a lot more real estate on that screen for, some users, and maybe they're constantly shrinking it or constantly making it disappear. You don't have to have that, necessarily always be the case for them if you want it to close by default or not even be openable by default. And so there's quite a few settings that really help you manipulate that and, change that thing. And I think they get overlooked, especially since this portal settings, configuration menu is so large, because there's quite a few different things you can do with the portal in setting those things. And you can see if I uncheck these now, I don't want them to actually automatically be collapsed, and I go ahead and remove this and just try to go to this page, now you'll see it'll automatically be opened as it normally is by default. So yeah, just thought I'd kind of show that off a little bit in case, quite a few people may not have noticed that or realized that there was, there's quite a few options there. Or if you just kind of get used to what, you can add to the URL, you can kind of do it yourself as well. I do see we've had quite a few people joining additionally. So if you would like, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat or in the Q&A, and I'd be happy to help. So far, we don't have any questions, so I've just kind of been going through some settings and various things just to kind of show how you can manipulate what you see in decisions. So maybe for end users or certain designers, you want them to see things in a different way or remove some of these bars. That's kind of what I was showing off beforehand. But again, please ask questions if you have anything. All right, we do have a question now in our chat, so we can talk about that one. That question is, how can we control access and display only some rules to users? Smith, I'll allow you to talk so you can kind of expand on that a little bit. What more specifically are you looking for here?
Hi, this is for if we are exposing decisions to our end users, right? We don't want them to see every single flow, everything. So how can they just be exposed, say, if it's like through an AD group or whatever, I'm asking for suggestions, see only some rules which they can edit.
Got it. So you're looking at, you want them to be able to actually like have designer access though still to edit certain rules, but just
Correct.
not everything. Got
Correct.
it. Okay. Yeah.
Inside a project. We do have a project, but they should not be exposed to everything in the project.
Right. Yeah. So that will mostly just come down to, the specifics of um, like, planning ahead of who you want access to these things. If it's on the individual level, then obviously you just kind of think about accounts and what accounts you have, and you'll set permissions for those accounts. If you have like groups of these people, like, this team A and then team B, and they're working on different things, so maybe they have some rules that they have in common, but some rules that they, don't want to be able to have, then, you set up those groups, add the accounts to
Okay.
that group, and then from there, you would just make sure you want those accounts to have access to, most of the things in the project. But then on the individual level, you can manipulate and change who has access to different things.
Okay, I have to do
So
it individually on each rule.
yes, so yeah, and like
Okay.
within this, right, like this is one designer folder that maybe
Mm-hmm.
has a bunch of rules and flows in it. I can go to the permissions and manage permissions here.
Okay,
Um,
got
and
it.
then if you want to do like, right, like the whole project, maybe, like I have four things here, right? Maybe I have
Mm-hmm.
team A, B, and C. I want all of them to have access to dashboard practice. I want only A to have access to this one, only B have access to this one, only C to have access to this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I could give them all access to the project, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you want them to have access to the, items everywhere. But then on team A's item, disable permission inheritance. So it won't link to those, it won't inherit the permissions across everything. And then I can manage the permissions and say, okay, only group A, which I don't have that specifically. So I'll just grab, we'll just pretend managers is group A, right? And give them their, their ability to edit these or whatever, whatever they need to have their permissions. So now they have access to dashboard practice because that's across the whole project, but then they only have access to flow run part demo because that's their team's, set of rules and things like that to access. And then you would do the same thing over here with the next project, disable permission inheritance, so they're not inheriting the, every access for everyone, but then manage permissions and give specifically team B access to this section. And then, you can have the rules in each provided area for, whatever particular team has those.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
And then I guess one more small thing too that's kind of in relation to this as well. There are other things as well that you can manipulate. If you have like, I guess, further more than just access necessarily, there are other like further items that you can do if you look in the chat, you can hide actually like certain steps from users, as well as you can set like action visibility rules on, some dashboards and things. Specifically, if you're using like case entities and stuff like that, you have the ability to set action visibility rules. So if you have certain right click actions, like when I right click this, I can have the ability to create flows and rules and things like that. I can set action visibility rules, and I can base those off of, groups as well.
Mm-hmm.
So say like, group A only has access to certain actions. So especially important if you have someone's creating their own actions that are related to these things in addition to, these are the default ones, but you can also, set it so certain people can't do these actions. That's another thing to consider as well. But you'd have, similar to what I mentioned, you'd have your groups and things set out first, and then those can block people that aren't in the groups from viewing those things.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Mhm. Any other further questions? All right. Well, if anyone has any questions, please type them in the chat or Q&A, and I'll be happy to help. Otherwise, I'll give it a little bit more time for anyone to come up with anything if they want to add anything. I'll show off one more thing. Back to what I was talking about with some of these, the ways to kind of configure and show or change how these things look. There's one more thing that you can kind of take a look at that most people overlook or maybe not don't necessarily think about. And that's if you go to your system and you right click, you actually have the theme editor, which allows you to manipulate and change a lot of the items, the default items and how they look in decisions. You can actually go to your theme editor and find quite a few different things that you can change if you would like, both on the desktop and the mobile versions of things. But you can change your default colors and your accents and all these things, any primary actions, secondary actions, and things like that. What kind of font you want available and how you want to change some of those things. Various like icons and the way things look, from your portal and everything like that. How things are designed, the borders, the backgrounds, all this kind of stuff. Obviously, a ton of things, so I don't need to necessarily click on everything. But in addition to hiding those elements so that you don't see, the bar across the top or your folder tree on the side, you can actually change how exactly these things look. Do you want to change various icons? What does it look like if there's a check mark or your download options? Can you change what that looks like? What does the little icon look like? You can actually go into that and say, okay, well, this is the image that it's default, but maybe I have a different one. I want to use a different one than what decisions automatically has. I can grab that from a file that I have. We've got the library of icons if you want to change it to any of those, or if you've added items to your library. All kinds of different things you can actually change. So you can really customize what it looks like for you with the theme editor to kind of show various different things. If configuring and redesigning what we have here, in addition to things like CSS that you could add from the outside as well to kind of change what everything looks like. Right. We do have one last question, or not one last question, unless people ask more, but another question. It's currently our only other question, which is it possible to get form assignment details in active form flows? Pretty self-explanatory, but I will just allow you the opportunity to talk if you would like. Robert, if you have anything to add or, question about this topic.
Yeah, so I have a field on a form that needs to be hidden. And right now it's being hidden based on like a user's role. But now the client wants it to be hidden at certain steps within the process as well. And so I have a conflicting thing where users with the role, it will show for them, but I need to hide it at even for them at this certain step. So I'm trying to use the assignment name to filter, but I can't seem to find like the assignments in the like form details or whatnot in an active form flow.
Got it. Okay. So you're looking like, let's say we're trying to grab something and you're looking for the details like within the form.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it'd be in form or flow.
I don't think it naturally is. And the reason why I don't think it's going to automatically, appear here is it's not necessarily guaranteed that, this in general is just a form, right? It's not
Mhm,
guaranteed to be used as an assignment.
mhm.
So that's why you're not going to see that data appearing here automatically, right? Like you can grab the information that's on the form itself, like the contents within your form and things like that. But you're not going to see anything specific about the assignments. You can, however, fetch that data because that data is still getting stored, in decisions. You would just need to do something else to kind of fetch that information. And that from there, it kind of depends on, how you have your project built, or if how you're defining your assignment name or anything like that, and where that information is coming from.
Got it.
Because there
Okay.
is the assignment that, like if I look there, I have, right, assignment stuff. So I can fetch assignments and you can set your fetch criteria. If your assignment name is maybe being chosen dynamically, or you have, some element of your assignment name being chosen dynamically, and it's, any of that data is on the form, then maybe you can say, something to that effect. Like entity name equals or contains or whatever. And now it'll filter out all of those things, and you could use that to then, send whatever ways you want there. Something like that. But yeah, it'll be kind of picking that fetch criteria based on if you want to utilize assignments to then pull from those things. If there's something else, something like the state, the assignment state, if it's in waiting or if it's late, because you can set assignments to be in like the late stage or expired or anything like that. You can look from those here. There's a few of the other things like within assignments. The
Would that
other
also
option
work for
too,
like entity states? Because almost all of our assignments also have a matching like entity state as well.
you're referring to like states like if a case entity or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that was actually about to be what I was going to say next.
Okay.
So this is specific to the assignment, but right, if you have your case entity, this is not in this project right now. I don't actually have anything created, right? But like if I created a case entity for my purchase request project, right, I should be able to grab that here, and I can fetch
Mhm.
that, and I can fetch it by the state. I can fetch, if I do like you would do it like this. You would fetch folders because the state is on the folder level, right? And
Okay.
then your extension is where you would put your case entity or your entity extension or whatever you have. Again, I don't have any on this particular project at the moment, but I would fetch folders of my purchase request type or folders of my whatever project, whatever case entity type. And then from there, I would have fetch criteria related to that. And since state is on folder, your entity state, I can grab state and say, okay, for this, I want to see fetch any of my entities where the state equals, started or waiting approval or whatever. Now, all of my results from this fetch entities will be related to that. And then, you could further add fetch criteria to hopefully narrow it down so that it's only, one thing. And then from there, manipulate it. But yeah, I would use one of those two things. Either fetch your assignments or fetch with folder and your whatever your data structure is as the extension type, and then you should be able to have enough fetch criteria to kind of narrow down, what specifically you're looking for from there.
All right. Thank you.
And some additional, just because I'm learning too. This is Robert. I'm with Decision as well. I'm also Robert, I guess. There is, when you create an assignment, there's an option for an assignment reference ID. So you might be able to use that to reference the actual assignment for that form.
That is true.
I didn't know that, but look, when you go and create an assignment on a form, by default it's null, but you can add, Jeremy, I'll show you. But when you go and change the right there, or slightly, yep, assignment reference ID, that might be useful for you, so you can reference that information. That assignment reference ID is built into that assignment structure, so then you should be able to add that fetch criteria for the assignment reference ID, and just pull it that way as well, potentially.
But that would probably have to be like dynamic, and so we don't get like overlapping
Right.
references. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, definitely
Okay.
dynamic, but from there, that's at least, something more directed and,
Yeah.
Obviously unique if you want. So that may help with that, parsing exactly what you need from there for sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right. Last chance. Anyone else? Quite a few people have already left the call as well. But last chance for any other questions before we end for the day.
And I'm just playing with it, but someone said assignment ID can be output when a form is completed. William put that in the chat.
Yeah,
My
very good.
suggestion was going to be to you could utilize something like your flow for your flow assignment reference ID. You could use something like your like start time, because that's all the way down to like the millisecond, and like unless two people fill it out the exact millisecond, it would create unique, it would dynamically create a unique variable which could be referenced for like if you go to assignment reference ID and change that from null to select from flow, and then you use flow data, you could potentially parse it down and use one of those built in. It's just kind of a variable that you would then reference in the active form flow. But that seems it would take some playing
Yeah,
with.
I believe if you don't have it set to null, it defaults to null because I'm sure some people may not want it. I believe if you don't have it set to null, it'll at least auto generate one for you. You know, the same way that decisions will auto generate IDs for most things. But as that, if you're using the most recent version of 9.1, right, which is just released, um, the on step run part of this, it's not here because what I have right now is not 9.1 yet. But there's a third option now, a checkbox that you can actually have it output that assignment ID. So if it outputs that assignment ID, you can actually, send it somewhere or pull from somewhere and utilize that.
Yeah, that'd
If
be
you need
very
to.
useful.
Yeah.
But
So
would that assignment ID be used or be able to be seen inside the form or only out after the form, like
I
in the flow?
believe it's going to be after the form.
Okay.
But then like it would be more like, you have this assignment, that the initial assignment or whatever, it outputs that
Mhm.
ID, and then you can use that ID to call back to what that assignment was if you need to reference that assignment for anything else later.
Okay.
I think if this is your only form and it's an assignment and you're trying to refer to itself to get information about the assignment, then you may need to resort to what the previous things we mentioned.
Okay.
All right. Well, if we have nothing else, and most people seem to have been leaving, thank you all for joining. For those of you that joined, asked questions, those of you that joined just to watch, thank you to the team that joined and kind of helped me with some documentation links and things like that. If you need anything, don't forget, you can always check out our decision support YouTube channel. It's where we post our lunch and learns, as well as additional content for, and learning new things or training on different items and things like that. And then you can also always check out the solutions marketplace if you needed to check out anything from there. Otherwise, thank you all for joining for today, and we will continue this week with Robert and Jared throughout the rest of this week. And we'll see you all next time.